Started.
I just knew because Susan.
Thank you all for coming today to the Lunch and Learn. Just a couple quick reminders. If you still need points for wellness points, remember to go and enter this for 25 points. And if you participated in the wellness screening, those 300 points should automatically be loaded. If you've completed your health risk assessment and locked it, that's a key that you have to lock it, and then the 300 points should load automatically. So if you go into the system and see that you don't have those points, let me know. From most people, it's worked just fine. Otherwise, I would love to introduce Anne and Stacy from the Fluor Hy-Vee. They're here to teach us how to reduce fat in foods and still have it taste great. Anne is a dietitian who's been here in the past, and Stacy has as well. She's the chef, and she made our wonderful lunch today. So if you have any questions on what we had today, Stacy's the one to ask. Thank you both for coming.
Thanks. Well, I know that you guys probably thought maybe your portion sizes weren't super huge today, but I know in the past when we've talked about food, we've talked about the new food guide pyramid, which is right here. Just a little quick reminder. As you can see, there's no section for fat on the new food guide pyramid. So when you're thinking about the amount of fat in food, you don't actually have to measure it. You're just needing to state these portion sizes. When you say to this portion size, you're getting the right amount of fat from your food. So that's why your portion sizes were that size today, because it coincides with what the food guide pyramid does kind of recommend. So just thought I'd mention that. Today we're just going to kind of talk about fat. Fat's been kind of a buzzword lately in the news. I'm sure you guys have all heard about the FDA is going to be taking out trans fat in all of our foods, and there's a reason for that. So I thought we'd kind of go over the different types of fat and kind of what you should be looking for. Also, besides the trans fat, there's also been talk about healthier fats like your poly and monounsaturated fats actually not turning to fat in your body, but helping you burn fat naturally. So we'll talk a little bit about that too. So I have a handout that you all have. It's called Dietary Fat, the good, the bad, and how to eat the right ones. And it kind of is a great little just short synopsis about fat in food. So fat naturally does occur in some foods, mostly animal products. It has the higher amount, which that's anything that comes from animals. So your dairy, your cheese, your eggs, and your meat. But fat also does naturally occur in some vegetables and fruit. People don't realize that. So I had a radish the other day, and the radish has 0.2 grams of fat in it, which a lot of people don't know. So fat does naturally occur in food. So when we have naturally occurring fat in food, thinking about what we naturally get from food, and then we add fat on top of that. So things like butter and margarines, oils, nut butters, nuts and seeds, all of those contribute extra fat. So thinking about when we plan our meals, the naturally occurring fat that we've eaten today, there wasn't a lot of added fat to it. But fat can actually help with a lot of good things in your body as well. So there's a little chart here of the different types of fat. Your mono and polyunsaturated fats are your good fats. Those are those unsaturated fats. So most of those are liquid at room temperature. A lot of them are not solid. And then your saturated fats are solid at room temperature. So the more solid that fat, think of that doing the same thing in your body. So visualize bacon grease after it's cooled. When you eat bacon, that's exactly what it does in your arteries and what it does into your blood. It clumps up like that and it floats around your body like that. So it goes through all your arteries that way. Thinking about your major arteries that are larger can tolerate those a lot easier than those smaller arteries that we have in our eyes. Think of those little arteries we have in our eyes and those fat globules trying to get through there. So very difficult for them to get through those kind of areas. So the more fat that you consume that's saturated, that's more solid at room temperature, the more it's going to stick inside those arteries throughout your body. So thinking about when we are babies, we drink a lot of milk as children, and we usually drink whole milk. And whole milk is one of the highest saturated fat milks that we consume. So as we're children, we get exposure to a lot of saturated fat. And that's why heart disease is such a big issue when we're in our 50s and our 60s, because it actually starts when we're children. So that's kind of a great thing to think about too. When you're eating higher saturated amounts when you're younger, you're definitely going to have some heart health issues, cholesterol issues, triglyceride issues as you become an adult. So it doesn't happen. You can't reverse what you did when you were 6 months old, but you can also prevent it from getting worse as in your 40s and your 50s. So I always recommend to watch your saturated fat intake. Protein is very good for you and it's very healthy, but there are different meats and proteins that have less saturated fat than others. So choosing those leaner options are a much better way to go. And then the trans fat are the worst fats that you can consume. Trans fat are one of the most solid fats at room temperature. And right now they're found in about 12% of our products, which is what FDA is kind of seeing that trans fat is very much associated with heart disease and stroke and other heart-related issues. Trans fat is basically synonymous with hydrogenated or partially hydrogenated oils. That's what trans fat is. And trans fat increases shelf stability. So the longer a product can live on the shelf, probably the more trans fat is in it. Twinkies, I'm sure you guys have all heard that they are exactly the same 75 years from now as they would be as the day in the package that you open them. And that's because of the trans fat in the actual product. So baked goods, peanut butter. Almost all your peanut butter that's not claimed as natural has trans fat in it. And that's where the problem arises, that on our labeling that our government has set, if there's less than 1 gram of trans fat in a serving, they do not have to list it as containing trans fat in the product. So a lot of your peanut butter will say 0 grams, but if you look in the ingredients, it says partially hydrogenated or hydrogenated oils. So the two that I usually recommend that most people watch are your peanut butter, your nut butters, and then also your margarines. A lot of your margarines will have partially or fully hydrogenated oils in it. So you need to be very, very careful. What our recommended serving is a day is less than 1 gram. So if we don't know how much is in those two products, we might be getting way over our recommended intake for the day. And that's why the government is starting to realize we need to start pulling this out of our products. On the other side of your sheet, there's another explanation of poly and monounsaturated fats. And you guys have all heard of omega-3s, I'm sure. We know those are those heart-healthy fats, but there's also omega-6 and omega-9s. And those are found in those healthy poly and monounsaturated fats. So you can see a lot of our healthier fats, like your nuts and seeds, avocado, which Chef Stacy's going to talk about today, and then also our oily fish are going to provide us with those heart-healthy foods. When it comes to nuts and seeds, I think that's one thing that every one of us should consume at least once a day, just because actually a handful of nuts can actually help reduce belly fat. It's one of the starring foods that do reduce that belly fat. It helps fill you up, but it's also very high in those poly and monounsaturated fats. There's been a lot of studies with 1 serving a day that's helping with people with that, and also reducing insulin resistance, which increases our weight as we age. So a handful, the bigger the nut, the less you get. So a handful of almonds is about 24 almonds. If you did walnuts, you get about 12, or pecans, you get about 12. Peanuts, you actually get 40. Pistachios, you get 49. So remember those serving sizes, because still, they're very, very high in fat. You can't eat the whole jar and hope that you're, this big in the morning, because it will actually make you gain weight if you eat too much of what your body doesn't need. So an average serving of nuts and seeds a day has about 14 grams of heart-healthy, waist-slimming fat in it. And they've also had lots of studies coming out that the actual healthy fats in foods, our body does not absorb as fat, not as that yellow subcutaneous fat that makes us sick. It actually puts fat around our organs and crushes our organs and helps with our neurons in our brain and lots of other good things that it does in our body. So that's why it's important to choose those healthier fats too. Using olive oil to cook with actually can enhance vitamin absorption in some of your foods. That's why it's really great to put a vinaigrette on a kale salad or putting it into a spinach salad, because you actually absorb vitamins and minerals from vegetables much better when you have a fat with it. Roasting broccoli with a little bit of olive oil will actually help increase your vitamin absorption. So it's good to put a little fat on vegetables, not butter, but olive oil is a great choice, or canola oil. Those will actually help. And then just a couple other things about fat that I like to talk about. Fat does add taste to food, but too much fat can actually decrease the taste in food. So fat coats your tongue, coats your taste buds. And the more saturated the fat is, the more it's going to coat those taste buds, and you're not going to taste food as much. That's why we can eat like a whole pizza by ourselves, because it's got all that cheese on it, and we just don't taste the actual things that are the pizza's composed of. When you add healthier fats to food, it doesn't cover up the taste, and you actually taste the food a little bit more. That's why sauteing things in a little bit of olive oil or canola oil actually can enhance the flavor of your food. So that's a great tip to recommend. Most of us need probably average around anywhere from 40 to 55 grams of fat total a day. And that's total fat, not separating them out. And so when you start to go over that amount, that's when we start to gain weight from actual fat intake. So if you think 24 almonds have 14 grams of fat, if you had 60 almonds, how much closer are you to that 50 grams of fat a day? So you still have to be mindful of that serving size of fat. Any questions about the different types of fat? You guys all know about that? Yeah?
I have a question about olive oil. You know,
Uh-huh.
they have virgin, extra virgin, but what is the differences in what you
I'll give my version and maybe Chef Cece can give hers. The more green the olive oil, the more it tastes like olives, and that's the first press of olives. So the extra virgin, light, that type of stuff refers to the press of the olive. Has nothing to do with the caloric count or how much fat is in it. 'Cause a lot of times you'll see light olive oil, and people think, oh, that's healthier, but it's actually just the press of the olive, and it looks a lot more like a canola oil. So if you want it to kind of taste like olives, you'll want to go with that first press, and the first press will have the most nutrients in it and the most healthiest fats. Where the lower press, which will be like your light or your extra lights that are more yellow, will have a little bit less nutrients and will taste less like olives. Is that kind of like perfect? Okay. So to ask her, she's like the expert. Yeah, perfect. Also, there's lots of different, a lot of times we eat peanut butter. There's so many different nut butters out now too, so it's great to be adventurous with trying some of those different ones. I have a great recipe for a homemade walnut butter, which is delicious. And so adding actually a little bit of peanut butter or something to food also can enhance that taste of food. So putting peanut butter, making like Asian noodles at home can actually enhance the taste of the food of your dish. So don't be scared of those types of things, but also remember that a serving size of peanut butter is 1 tablespoon. And that's about the size of your thumb. And that has about 8 to 9 grams of fat in it in 1 tablespoon. I can sit there sometimes and eat a couple tablespoons of peanut butter. But, when we do make peanut butter sandwiches and things like that, we tend not to watch that portion size, and that's where you can get a lot of extra fat in your diet too. And most of the natural peanut butters that are out now do taste really, really similar to the regular peanut butters. So don't be scared of buying natural, and that's usually what I recommend. All right, now Chef Cece's going to share with us a little way of cooking with fat and how it can make food taste really super good.
Okay, so Anne's here to tell you guys how to eat, and I'm here to tell you and show you that all the stuff you're not gonna eat an ingredient if it doesn't taste good. I mean, that's just no matter what the health benefits are. Most of the people do not eat it just because they don't like the taste. So I'm going to show you how you can eat healthy, but you actually like it and you don't even know you're eating healthy. How about that? So I believe the recipe is all in one of your handouts, in the other handout. And this is going to be the perfect My Plate. You can either use it as a dip or a snack, or you can wrap it in a tortilla or some lettuce for lunch. So what I've done is I've gotten a rotisserie chicken that you can just get at any grocery store, Hy-Vee. And then I just cut it up. I deboned it and just cut it up in little pieces. It doesn't have to be diced up really fine. Nothing too crazy. And then I have rinsed out a can of black beans. And make sure you rinse it because it does have some, it will be very gritty if you don't wash your black beans.
That also helps reduce the sodium in it, like cuts it in half. So it's always really good to rinse all your canned vegetables.
And then we're going to add the red peppers and the green peppers. And I have just diced those up. And then I've diced up the green onions, and I'm just going to add half because the other half is going to go in our sauce. And so it's festive around this time. As you can see, we just add it up. It's fast. The hardest part is taking the chicken off the bone, and you can do boneless, skinless breast if you want. I would just use like maybe a pound of boneless, skinless breast. So the second thing is now we're going to go to our dressing, and we're going to use avocados. And I've had many times that people they say they don't like avocados. Still still try it. It doesn't taste maybe how you have originally tasted before. Our taste change as we get older, and so it's always nice to reintroduce foods that maybe you didn't like as a child, or maybe somebody cooked it wrong, and therefore that's why you did not like it. So what we do with an avocado, and you guys all know how to pick a ripe avocado. It just gives it's a little give to your thumb when you press into it, and I'll pass around this one. This is just an extra one. It's not mushy, and but it has a little give to it for your thumb. So I just cut it down the middle and around the pit. And I had to pre-cut it because I forgot my knife, and so I'm using it for chicken. But when you have a ripe avocado, it's perfect and it still works. And then we're going to cut it into fours. And I know a lot of people, I've been told by friends and even in school, all you're supposed to do is cut an avocado and then you're just supposed to whack the pit with it, and easy, right? Well, I've also had friends go to the ER that missed the pit and got their hand. So I say that the easiest way is to cut it in fours when you have a ripe avocado, and then it just comes away from the pit. It's nothing hard. You don't have to whack at anything. It's safe for everybody. And then you just peel back like a banana of a peel. And then we will add that to our separate bowl. And I will warn you that this recipe does make a lot. So if you want to do half, this is the full recipe, and you'll see how much it makes. So if you want to do half, that would be great, and then maybe you can use the chicken and the half of peppers for like a fajita the next day. When I make recipes, I try to make things with cans and whole things, so this one kind of ballooned up into a lot. So sorry. Alright, so then we're going to add the green onions. And this will just be a little bit of flavor. And then we're going to add our Greek yogurt. And the Greek yogurt is plain. It's 0% fat. Make sure you're getting the 0% fat. Anne will attest to that there are some Greek yogurt that is out there that's got about 20 grams of fat per serving. So get the 0% fat. I use Chobani, there's Hy-Vee, there's AE, all kinds of them. And then I'm going to add the skim milk. And then the sriracha. And you guys can use, if you like green Tabasco, any hot sauce you like. You can use whichever one you like. I just have this in my fridge all the time, so therefore that's what I use. Then we're going to use the cumin. And the cumin will just give it kind of like almost like a little Mexican flavor. And a little celery salt, so you don't have to use salt and pepper. And then just lime, or lemon. You can use lime if you prefer that. And it's just to make sure that the avocados don't oxidize and they don't brown as fast. So once all the ingredients are in there, this is an immersion blender. I'm not a huge fan of all the kitchen gadgets that are out there, but I will tell you that this is my favorite. It's perfect. It does dressings and it does sauces, and you don't have to get out your huge food processor. The only hard thing is make sure that it is immersed, otherwise there will be a big mess. And you can add more hot sauce if you like it hotter. I just add it more for the flavor. It's not going to actually be hot.
I like avocado a lot. You can use avocado in baking. You can use it. I made cookies with it instead of using butter. It's great for Christmas time because you can put some red and green M&Ms in there, and it just kind of looks like green cookies. But great for brownies. It's just a much healthier fat to work with, and it actually works exactly like butter or oil would work in a baking recipe.
But then we just mix it all together, and then I will just, it's really fast, and mix it together, and it will be really fast, easy. Like I said, this is how much the recipe makes. So if you are having a party, perfect for that. If it's just for you, maybe half a recipe would be good. I usually say once you make it to eat it within 2 to 3 days, when you cover it up, just put the plastic right over top of it so that it will decrease the oxidization in there and the browning of the avocados. So we'll let you try this.
And we're using it as a dip today. I'm the other recipe on your sheet, and I made my homemade tortilla chips, which are super easy. I do not buy tortilla chips in the grocery store because I like the taste of these much better, and they're a lot more cost effective. I get a pack of corn tortillas. Basically, this has 18 corn tortillas. I just take a pizza cutter and cut them up in whatever you like it to be. I do triangles. Some people like them in little strips. But just cut them with the pizza cutter, and then I spray, I don't know if you guys have all seen this, but this is Heidi's olive oil spray. It's not like Pam or any of those. It doesn't have anything extra in it. There's no soy, no propellant, but it does act just like it would a Pam. So then I just spray the top of those, and then I bake them in the oven at 375, put a little kosher salt or salt on top for about 10 to 12 minutes, and they turn out awesome. This is a whole package. And I usually make a batch up about once a week, and I just keep them in the freezer if we don't eat them all. And they'll keep about 1 week on your counter, and they'll keep in your freezer for a couple months. So this package costs $1.99, much cheaper than a package of Tostitos for $4. And I think they're much healthier. You can also control the fat that you put on them, and you can use healthier fats and not a lot of extra ingredients. So we're gonna have you guys try this with that. You can, again, as a dip if you want to, but this is a great thing that you can also put different flavorings on. Chili powder, I love chili powder on these. Cumin's great on it. You can make them sweet with cinnamon, a little bit of sugar. It's a fun way to do with like a fruit salsa or something like that too. So it's fun to do your own chips if you want to. And I always use corn. Corn is a much healthier option than using the flour. The flour is just a lot of non-whole grains, and actually the corn is a good healthy whole grain. So that's why I usually do the corn tortillas. So we'll pass these around. Probably a couple chips for everybody available. There's probably about 120 chips, so just thought I'd let you know that. We'll start over here. What does everybody think? Was there any non-avocado likers in here that tried it and liked it? Yeah? Everybody's scared of green things, I think.
It's a good way to hide stuff in, but they still see it. So this is for kids or even adults that don't like their vegetables. It gives it a good crunch. The peppers give it a good crunch. They can still see it, so you're not hiding it, that you're pureeing it so much that they don't even know that you're eating it.
And you could use tuna, so make a great tuna salad too. Canned tuna is going to be a great source of those good omega-3 fatty acids. That'd be a great way to try something different. I was just saying to Stacey, we're talking about crab this time of year. Crab would be really good in there too. So it's a very versatile recipe, and it's still going to give you a lot of good healthy fat as well. So what do you guys think of the chips?
Good.
Easy, really easy, and much more cost effective, and much more healthier for you too. So if you have questions for about anything nutrition wise, or anything for Chef Cece about, she'll tell you anything that you need to know about chefing.
Deal with sea salt. Is sea salt better for you, or you hear all these things about using sea salt?
Salt is salt is salt. Whether it's sea salt, whether it's table salt, it's still salt. So table salt and sea salt have the same amount of sodium in it. You can just use less sea salt to get the flavor from it. Table salt's cut, so you need to use a little bit more to get more of that salt flavor. So really there's not any difference. It's just the amount that you use.
What about raw sugar versus sugar in a bag?
Sugar, sugar, sugar. Yeah, exactly the same. It's just less processed. It's probably just not as refined as normal table sugar. So, yeah, it gets touted as being a healthier option, but really there's some difference.
What about the, and I love crackers, but I've been trying to eat like the nut thins. Are
Uh-huh.
those any better, worse?
You know, nut thins they're great because they are made from nuts, and so that's a great source. Unfortunately, a cracker's still processed. So to get it into that pretty little cracker, there's not a lot of great things in it after it's been processed. So there's not hardly any fiber in that, and it's not really considered a whole grain cracker. So you're still better off doing something like a Triscuit or a wheat thin or some kashi crackers because they're going to be more whole grains and more fiber in them. But they are delicious.
Yeah, I do.
I love those crackers.
You need that crunch. And
Yeah,
it's
and the
like,
crunch is great. And if it prevents you from eating a potato chip, of course it's a much healthier option if you're trying to watch your calories.
And I have a question about fiber. I see some like a whole wheat bread saying whole wheat, but when you see the fiber, it's 8%, even less. So how many percentage?
I don't usually go by percentages on your nutrition labels. Always go by the actual kind of numbers because it's based on a 2,000 calorie diet, and you're probably not eating 2,000 calories a day. So whenever you look at a carbohydrate or a starchy food, try to look for something that has 3 grams of fiber per serving. That's kind of a goal. So you always look at the serving size because it might be 1 slice of bread or it might be 2 slices of bread. So that's just so you know if you need to eat 2 slices to get 3 grams, or you need 1 slice to get 3 grams. But always choose 100% whole, whatever you decide, 100% whole rye, 100% whole wheat, and then make sure that fiber content on the back is at least 3 grams. And that's kind of what you want to shoot for with those carbohydrate foods. Yeah.
Okay, so what you were talking about starchy foods. So are potatoes? Are there anything really good about a potato?
Oh yeah, potatoes have lots of great nutrients, vitamins, minerals. I mean, they are a great. If you think about a potato versus a baguette or a piece of bread, you're getting a lot more healthy things from a potato than you are from a piece of bread. So potatoes have fiber in them. They're low in calorie, so they're very healthy. The problem is that this is not the size of a potato. You know, like those big baking potatoes, that's not a serving size. The problem is the serving size. So your size of your fist is what your serving should be for a potato. And so if you stay within that, then that's a perfect carbohydrate starch serving for you for the day. And nutritionally, a potato is not a vegetable, it is a starch or a carbohydrate food. So you can't count it as a vegetable, unfortunately. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay, good.
What about coconut oil?
What about it?
I didn't see it mentioned on the sheet.
You know, coconut oil is a big buzz right now too. Coconut oil is solid at room temperature. I think the best use for coconut oil is as a moisturizer for dry, cracked feet and hands. You know, coconut oil is a medium chain triglyceride, which that might not mean a lot to you, but triglycerides are the things that are floating around in our blood. You guys probably had screenings, and so you got your triglycerides tested. And actually, my medium chain triglycerides are a little bit different from those triglycerides. So our body doesn't absorb them the same way as we do from other fatty foods. So the only thing different is when you use coconut oil, it still has fat in it. You just don't absorb as much of the fat as you would from a regular triglyceride, which would be like your poly and your mono and the saturated fats that we eat. So does anybody remember Anova oil? That was out a few years ago. That was very similar to the structure of coconut oil. So it's just another form of fat that has a little bit less absorption in our body. Not against it, but I think it's very expensive for what it is, and I think that it works better in people's bodies as a moisturizer than it does as a food product. That's just my opinion as a dietitian. So
I think you can get away using olive oil and canola oil for most of your oil. That's the only 2 things I've ever had in my cupboard, so.
And people are they're saying to add coconut oil to smoothies and add it to, well, it's that same principle that if you add fat to something, you're going to absorb the vitamins and minerals from it better. And that you can accomplish with healthy oils such as canola and olive oil too. So we don't really need to add more fat to our diet to something that doesn't need fat. We just need to keep eating just basically what we should be eating on a regular basis.
So like when you're making a cake and it says
oil, vegetable oil, now you have canola oil in the house, and I use exactly the same amount, and I'll still end up with the same
Yep,
price
that's
thing.
all I use. I just one for one.
And someone asked about olive oil, like if you wanted to bake with olive oil, that's when you want to choose those light, extra lights, those more yellow colored olive oils, so then it doesn't alter the flavor of your baked goods.
Could you recommend some kind of relatively healthy snack for kids?
There's lots of them.
This is a great snack.
Yeah. It's a good snack.
Great snack with tortilla.
I always, when you think about snacks for anybody, kids, adults, I usually recommend that it has protein with it. So that's why, this is a great snack because it does have protein with it. Whenever you eat food without protein, it tends not to stick with you. So you'll tend to kind of get hungry within 30 minutes to an hour later. So if you do, if you kids come home from school, apples and a piece of string cheese is a great combination because you're putting a protein with a fruit. But if you just had the apple, that's not a really good balance. So it's really good to make sure that they have some type of protein with their snack. So yogurt's a perfect package. It's got protein and it's got fruit and it's got carbohydrate. It's the perfect little package. A cup of milk is actually a perfect little package for a snack. So it doesn't have to be anything crazy. It can be something just as simple as 8 ounces of milk.
I do cheese and Triscuits a lot, and that fills them up. The Triscuits fill them up, and the cheese is kind of protein.
What did I have yesterday?
Cheese and
What do you think about the smart ones and those type of things as an easy lunch? Are they?
Yeah, I think, there are worse things that you could eat, for sure. I always think of those foods as in case of emergency foods, like if you just are running out the door and there's nothing else. So having a couple in your freezer at times is perfectly fine. When you're starting to make it more of a habit that you're having it more than once a week, then I don't think it's as great for you just because the sodium content is so high in those. And it is portion size, which is excellent. And if it prevents you from going to a fast food restaurant, I'm all for it. It's just as long as it's not becoming every meal for you. And I do think healthier choice is a little bit of a healthier option than even the smart ones and the lean cuisine. So I kind of rank them as healthy choice, lean cuisine, and then smart ones, kind of in that order, as opposed to taste and health and appearance. And healthy choice actually preserves their vegetables really, really well. They flash freeze them, which just preserves the nutrients in them and stuff like that. All good questions. Anything else? Well, thanks for having us. I hope you guys learned at least one thing today, and I hope you enjoyed lunch and our snack. So have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.